Hello, it's Glenn again, and I'm going to do the End of the World podcast. I have to make up for the fact that YouTube yesterday said they were going to banish me, but they didn't banish me. They said, but you were close. You violated our rules. Now, they never say what rule it is or cite you so you can go look up and see what it is. They just say, well, here's our rules somewhere. So it's kind of like, well, we're going to give you a stick, and you go beat yourself with it. And what it really means, what does it really mean? It really means that China, and just like Russia has their pod people who read everything that's written on the internet about China and then try to get it taken down if it's against China. And I think that what their theory was that since I didn't have a question mark in the title, I was saying that I knew for a fact that there is a deadly virus in China. Well, people know that anyway. The COVID virus, even though we're talking about the Omicron BA or 2, is a deadly virus. All right? We all know that. But here's the problem. Here's where we're at today. There's a couple of reports of things that are just unbelievable. In the last few nights, there have been things like people are being put into what are called makeshift hospitals, which are hospitals only for the treatment of people that have been exposed to COVID. Now, I went through this on the last show. Why would anybody need that for a disease that gives you the sniffles? They didn't do that for a cold. They didn't do that for Delta variant, which was really some serious and deadly disease. So why are they doing it on this one? And I mentioned this in the last episode, but it is 100% absolutely true that the Chinese government are confining people. If you were in your office working when the lockdown notice went into effect, they were only given about an hour and 40 minutes advance notice. People didn't believe it, but you are quarantined to your office. You have to live in your office and not go home until the government says it's okay. There does seem to be a fair amount of people being allowed to go visit. Not officially, but that's apparently going on there. There are a lot of people that are being let out if they promise to come back. But people that were, and there are millions and millions, well, not millions, maybe millions and millions of office workers in Shanghai where this is occurring. Like I said last time, 24 million people in Shanghai. There are plenty that worked in offices, and they have to live in their office. Now, their office did not have food or changes of clothing when the lockdown took place. There is a program by the Shanghai local authorities to get food to everybody. I mentioned last time I saw one of the boxes, and it was no dinner that you would write home about, but it was certainly, if somebody said, here, you have to live on this for 3 weeks, or, well, for a week, I'd say that's a lot better than nothing. I saw potatoes. I believe there was some meat in there of some sort. Remember that Chinese, by far, the number one meat they eat is pig. And so it looked like there might be some pig in there. And that's going to be another topic because it looks like there is a threat to the Chinese pig industry. Imagine if with all these people locked up, there's no pig. Well, anyway, we're back here, and the latest thing is that China has not allowed, but some of the photos have snuck out of the workers that are living in factories amid the COVID scare. And it is horrendous. It looks just like you think it would. It shows people that work in an office in their office clothes, trying to find a way to sleep on an uncomfortable office chair, under a desk. They don't have any mattresses. Luckily, there is water, so that's really, really good news. But the question is not that, even though there wasn't a question. The question is, why would they do that for this variant, which is the mildest of all. Now, in order to lay a foundation for the inquiry, let's talk about what are the threats that we know of the current variant. We're talking about now the Omicron BA2. The number one symptom, 84% of people have the sniffles. The following symptoms seem to follow along with it. People get a hoarse throat. They have a total or almost total lack of energy. They can't get up, can't get out of bed. And they have a headache, which is following it around. Some people are getting a cough. That's new. That wasn't part of the Omicron BA1. And now there's reports of tinnitus, which is just, it runs the gamut. It can go from an annoyance that goes away to a life-ruining chronic condition. One of the things that's interesting about tinnitus is how you are treated if you go to the doctor. You say, I have this ringing in my ears. What they actually do, if it's a competent doctor, they have a microphone that they put in your ear, because there's two types of tinnitus, or at least there's an initial divide that we have to find out which type of tinnitus is it. Is it the type that you can hear because your body has something that's making a noise in your nervous system? Or is there actually something going on in your ear that's making a noise? Maybe insect eggs hatching or something like that. So they first put in a microphone to see if us, the people standing around the tinnitus person, can we hear the noise too? Then, if it turns out that it is not something that is externally caused, if the other people in the room can't hear it, the hope is not good. And that's why there's so many ads on the internet about cure tinnitus. We've got the cure right here. Here's a doctor who discovered the cure. No, it's very, very hard to cure. If you're lucky, it goes away. But there is no cure for it. And it can be life-ruining. As I said, it scares me to talk about it. There are people who get it, and it's so loud, it makes a sound in their head like a fire alarm, and it can sometimes go 24 hours a day. How would you like to try and sleep with a fire alarm going off 24 hours a day? It's a terrible disease. That brings us to the point I made yesterday. That greatly shifts the equation. We talked about, is it better to just try and get the latest COVID that's going around and just hope you don't get long haul COVID, and that way you get an immunity, and that way, like we've all talked about, the immunity is way better, or better from having had COVID than from the vaccines. Should you just try to get COVID? And the answer, as I said at the time, and I've always said, is no. But for sure the answer is no now, because you don't want to come out with one of two sequelae. One, you don't want to come out with tinnitus, which we just talked about. And the other one, of course, is you don't want to get long haul. Now, we're sitting on pins and needles waiting to see what is the result of Omicron B2 and long-haul COVID. In other words, does anybody who tests positive, even if they don't get sick, that's called asymptomatic, do they have a chance of getting long-haul COVID? Currently defined as 3 months of symptoms after the disease has disappeared. And if you have long-haul COVID, your life is ruined. Now, you have it at 3 months. That doesn't prove you're going to have it forever. But the studies have been very, very discouraging and disappointing in that almost 50% of people who have those symptoms at 3 months still have those symptoms at 1 year. And the question is, well, wait a minute, how can we know that? Well, we know that from other variations of COVID. But since Omicron has not been around a year, we don't know what's the longest the long haul can last. But if it's like every other long haul, yeah, it looks like it can maybe go a year and maybe longer. That means that our societies are going to have these hospitals built, which are just nothing but treatment centers for long-haul COVID. Should be very easy to do because right now there's not much in the way of treatment. There's no answer to it. Now, if you remember, about 4 or 5 months ago, there was a story that said people with long-haul had shown positive results if they were given the vaccine. So in other words, let's say you got COVID, maybe you had the vaccine and you got it anyway, you didn't have the vaccine because you're stupid. Let's say you got the you got COVID, and unfortunately after 3 months you were still sick. Oh boy, that's a bad sign. And 2 months later you still had long haul, and there was a story saying that if you got a shot of the vaccine, your long haul would go away. I've never seen that story pop up again. Did anybody follow it? I don't know. But it was one of those stories that just went away. It was more reliable than that guy who said, well, we could put bleach. Can't we put bleach in their veins? If the bleach kills the virus, why can't we just put bleach in their veins? And then his staff had to come out and say, oh, no, he was just kidding. He wasn't kidding. We saw it. He thought that was possible. Anyway, let's get back to what we're talking about. We're talking about China, and there are now, and I'm kind of watching a talk board, there are claims or cases, or however you want to define it. There are people saying that the government is now coming to people's houses, and even though the people are quarantined in their house, that's not good enough. They've now started a wave of, if you tested positive, and because of the large number of people and tests and small number of labs and things like that, and police, I would guess, I think that probably enters into it. It looks like right now it's running about 5 days. In other words, you take a test on Monday, and let's say the results Monday night show, you're positive. So you go home and you lock yourself in. And as we mentioned yesterday, there's a program now where the police we're talking about in Shanghai, the police put a alarm on your door, and it automatically goes off if your front door is opened. I don't know about windows and things like that. Don't they use it? I don't know. I don't know the houses in Shanghai or pretty much anywhere else. But in Shanghai, it's running 5 days. So if on Monday night you get the notice that you are testing positive for COVID, even if you have not developed any symptoms, and even if you've been a good person and you stayed home for those 5 days, your front door has not opened, there are many, many people saying that at 2 a.m, Friday morning, yes, that's 5 days later, the police knock down the door. They don't knock. They knock down the door. They knock down the door. They come in and they say, we're taking you to the special COVID hospital. Now, these hospitals are nothing but warehouses of people. There's no medical staff. So you're being taken to a hospital that has no drugs, no medical staff. All there is a mattress on the floor, a weird kind of cage type deal that they put up so it just keeps people from walking over you or on top of you as they walk by, and people walking around telling you to be quiet and shut up and that don't worry, you'll be out of there real soon, which you're not. And there's very little in the way of bathrooms.